Hello and welcome to the training video. In this video I'm going to be doing a quick tour of Metrix and where to find everything in the software. Before we even open Metrix, I want to show you where to find the Metrix and Report Maker user manual. They're a lot more detailed on most of these topics and they're always a great reference for any questions you have. To find them, go to the Start menu, All Programs, find the Metrix 4 folder, and then the user guides. Alright, so now that we found those, let's open up the software. First thing we do is open up the GulfMed project, which is a sample project included in Metrix. It's located in the Data folder in the Metrix 4 folder of your program files. And this again is a sample project that we include with Metrix, so you can see what one should look like when it's all set up. So when you open Metrix, you'll see this tree structure on the left-hand side. It's divided into project, site, area, and meter levels. And that's how your project is going to be divided. So to use the analogy of a school, the project would be your district or your county. There's only one project per file. The site is going to be a specific campus on the school, and that site is a collection of areas. All of the areas have to use the same weather station. For this case, it's Mobile, Alabama. The area is typically a building within your site, and the meter is what you assign to specific areas. Generally, several meters serve an area, and each meter is specific to a utility type. So starting at the site level, first thing you're going to want to do is enter the name and description of your site. You can also enter location information, and this is also where you'll find the current floor area of your site. It's not where you're going to edit it though, that comes later in the area section. There's also contact information that you can edit, but this isn't required. Going down to the area level, again you'll want to enter a name and description as well as a location. You can enter a type of area, and the current floor area is also here. You'll edit it down here in these boxes. To edit it, you're going to click this box, select an effective date, select an effective area. You can also include the percent conditioned, as well as leave any comments. If you want this to be included in your site area, make sure that this box here is checked. You can also edit the contact information, but again, that's not required. Moving down to the meter level, the first thing you're going to want to look at is the meter setup tab. You're going to want to enter a unique name and account number for each meter. You can also include a description. This is where you're going to set your utility type as well as your cost calculation method. We're going to go over cost calculation methods in a later video. You can also include any notes that you want about what you've done on the meter down here. So the next tab you're going to want to look at is your register, which is the second tab up here. And this is where you're going to be doing all of your bill entry. There's three really important columns in this. The first is the period end date. The second is your energy distribution, that's on-peak distribution here. And your third is your demand column over here if you've got one. If you want to be tuning, all of these are required unless of course you don't have demand. A common thing that we hear is that you're not able to edit this first day of first bill, which corresponds to the day that your first bill starts on. To do that, you're just going to scroll up to your first bill and select it. And then up here it's going to be editable now. There's a couple things you can do in the bill register. First, you can enter detailed cost, which is again the cost that's associated with a specific usage. We have specific costs for consumption and demand. You can turn those on and off if you want to simplify your bill register. Another thing that you can do to make your life easy is you can copy paste straight into or out of the bill register. So in this case I can take my total dollars here, Control C, and then paste it again down here. And as you can see, they've been duplicated. There is no undo button in Metrix, so you're going to want to be careful there. Another thing to be aware of is once you turn off the detailed cost, if you had any numbers entered in there, they're not going to be there when you turn it back on. So you're going to want to be careful with that again. If you want to select and paste the entire bill register into Excel or something, you can right click, copy all rows, and then open up a program like, say, we'll open up Excel, and we just paste those right in there. And there's your entire bill register with the headings as well. I'm just going to close that off. So the next tab you're going to want to look at is your tuning tab over here. And this is where you're going to establish your baseline. You can edit which bills are being used for your baseline with these buttons up here. So say I want it to be one full year, so that's going to be 12 bills usually, and I want it to start maybe 6 bills in because my first 3 bills or so are bad. You can edit that up here. Usually your baseline is going to be set with your first 12 bills. If you need to use more than that, you can use 13, 14 bills, whatever it takes to get approximately 1 year worth of data. You can see right now I'm tuning to demand. I can uncheck that, and now I'm looking at my consumption values. If you have time of use periods, you can also select those here. I can look at on peak, off peak, partial peak, or I can look at the sum of all of my time of use periods. I don't have time of use periods in this project, but it's useful to know if you do. You can also see your degree days, which are what you're tuning to generally. And down here you can tweak your tuning from what the auto tuning is going to give you. You can change your balance point up and down, and you can manually select to include your heating degree and cooling degree days. We're going to go over tuning in a lot more detail in a later video, so I'm just going to leave it at that there. The next tab is your scenario inspection. This is a way to compare your baseline and your actual usage. Just like in the tuning tab, you can look at it for, you can look at your baseline, you can look at your target, which is a little more advanced topic, you can look at your sim actual, and these are going to be the values that you're getting down here. Your graph is generally going to look the same. You can also change the axis on your graph. You can look at your usage versus heating degree days. You can also look at your outdoor temperature or cooling degree days, and just time for a general picture of what things look like. If you want to copy paste out of this page or the tuning tab, you can just right click and do copy to clipboard, and you can select a couple different options for what you want to get out of it. If the graph isn't exactly the size that you want, you can minimize within the metrics folder and resize it. Whatever size it is here is what it's going to be when you paste it elsewhere, so it's important to get it that size before you leave. If you're on Windows 7, you can also just use the snipping tool to take it straight out of metrics. The Sim Actual tab is a comparison of your rate structure, how it's applied to your actual usage. So these values here are what my rate is giving me, and this is my actual usage. Again, you set the rate in your meter setup tab, and that's going to be gone over again in a later video. The last tab at the meter level is your import. This is an advanced topic that you don't really want to be touching early. The important thing to know is that this name, utility, and account number all have to match whatever you want to import with your MT1 file. Again, we'll be going over what an MT1 file and how to create one is in a later video, so don't worry about that for now. I'd suggest leaving it, or if you change it here, say we want this to just be named Electric 1, select out, it's going to say change import name as well. Usually you're just going to want to select yes, and it's going to keep these the same as these. Going down one more level from the meter, you can look at your rates. This is where you're going to want to change how your rate is structured if you're entering your own rate, and it's also where you can change the conversion factors for your utility type or names if you would like to. In this case, I have it set to the standard 3413 BTUs per kilowatt hours, so I'm not going to want to actually change any of that. The last thing I'm going to show you is the weather data, which is specific to each site. The weather data for this one is Mobile, Alabama, and it starts on the Weather History tab. The Weather History shows you the high-low temperature for each day, for each month of data that you have. The next tab over is your weather information. This is like the import tab. You're not going to want to change any of this. The last tab is your degree days. This is a nice graphical representation of your degree days per year. And down here we have a list of your heating and cooling degree days per month in each year. It's important to note that the heating degree days and cooling degree days that you're getting here are based off a 65-degree balance point, and those are extending from the first to the last day of each month. This is unlikely to be exactly what you have in your meter level, so if we were to go back to our tuning and go degree days here, it's very unlikely that this number is going to match exactly what it says in your weather tab. That's about all you need to know about navigating the tree structure. The very last thing I want to talk about are the shortcut buttons up top. The important ones here are the first couple, so you got open new project, open a project that you've already saved, or save your project just as usual. These two planes here, facing down and up, are import and export data respectively. You can import files from an MT1 file, which we'll be going over how to create later, and you can also export to a TS1, which is just a metric-specific kind of CSV file in Excel. These arrows here left of the import-export buttons let me navigate within the tree structure pretty easily. If I'm on the meter level, say, and I click next, it's going to take me to the next meter, or whatever you've selected. It's a really easy way to navigate specifically through sites or any other different level that you'd like to stay on. The QC button here is quality control, and it's going to check your project for standard errors. These include things like missing bills, meters with the exact same name, which you're not allowed to have, and other general things that are going to make running your reports difficult. I'd always suggest clicking the QC button before you finish working on a project for the day. It's going to point out any errors you might have. The Excel icon here is to launch Report Maker, which we'll be going over later how to use Report Maker. And this very last button here is the Metrix Interactive Help, which is going to have basically the same information that's in your user manual, but in a little more easily navigated structure. There is one more thing I want to show you about the Metrix help system, and that's how you can access it in specific fields. It's actually a context-sensitive help system. So say I'm on my meter level and I hit F1, it's going to pop up the help system specifically for meters. If I want to look at a meter and I'm looking at a specific field, say on the meter setup tab, and I click Shift F1, that's going to take me to the help system specifically for the meter name, because that's the field I was in at the time. If I do that elsewhere, say on account number, do it again, it takes me to the account help. So this is really helpful if you don't know how to find exactly what you're looking for in the help manual, but you know that you need help with a specific field because you're not sure what it does. That's about all I'm going to go over here. There's going to be more training videos on the specific topics I've mentioned. So thank you for joining us.